So what I would like to do is invite up to the stage over here people from 3 organizations and are going to comment on it. While they are coming up, 2 years, Israel has had many false prophets. 3 years ago at the first conference over here, I said that in education, I felt that this field of non-cognitive assessments was coming along and that this was a good business opportunity. I think that of all the false prophecies, I think that one was actually large. Today, the field's called social emotional learning. And if you look at how you're going to stack what it takes in order to be successful in the workforce, I feel that this is the domain that is highly valued and undermeasured, and therefore isn't really being used in order to upskill. I want to thank the panelists for joining me and give each one of them an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. And
let me introduce, I'm sorry, Simmy, Hagit Mitrani from Amdocs, Giulia Amico di Meane. I can say that again. It's a beautiful name. And Ohad Lavi. He was the CEO of Neurotech Solutions. Simmy.
So thank you. And I want to start at Amdocs because this morning I think the leader of your division maybe spoke over here, mentioned the same important factors. So what are you doing at Amdocs, which is a high-tech company, very driven by cognitive skills and in order to address the issue of what I'm calling social and emotional learning?
Okay, so can you hear me? So Amdocs is quite a huge company, almost 30,000 employees, so a lot of things being done. Part of them are focused on the business, like Yariv, business unit like Yariv mentioned. And part of them are cross-company initiative, and we in the L&D unit, we see as a mission for ourselves really to push those business skills, we call them, not soft skills, because the soft is too soft. So we are really trying to allow our people to define what are the skills they think they need to improve, and to give them a wide variety of different skills to educate themselves. So it can be communication skills, it can be lifelong learning skill, actually how to learn, which become very, very popular in the last few years. Problem-solving skill, all different. We emphasize a lot on group learning. So we blended the learning, part of it itself, part of it in the class, and a lot of group learning together. We're still not measuring it. As you mentioned before, this is a huge challenge for us, but I think that we really evolved even in bringing people to those sessions, which was a challenge, and now we see more and more people, and we see them by the thousands. If in the beginning we saw only 100, which is a small number for Amdocs. In the past 2 or 3 years, we see that many employees joining those courses, and we keep evolving also, taking from external platforms like Coursera, Udacity, Udemy, and others.
Thank you. So, Giulia, is that right?
Right.
That's good. Giulia, so tell us what you, specifically through the topic of what is called the SEL Prism, what are you doing? And I'd like you to bring the Italian or the European perspective to that.
Well, a tough challenge.
Yes.
Okay, I think that the main thing that we do with corporate, if we talk about corporate, I think the main challenge that we have with corporate and with students is try to put a seed of curiosity. So the real point here is not to deliver a training, but how do we make people, employees, students in a hurry to learn something new. So the starting point for me is the fear of missing out. So we try to push them and to show them that this world is changing really fast, and to get them in a not comfort zone. Because the real point here is that we need not just to deliver a training, but to make them want to learn more. So we do it by pushing them the curiosity and building a community, because the community really helps.
So I'm going to be like an Israeli interview on Reshet Bet, which means that I interrupt you while you're giving your answer, and which means that I want you to hone in on when you say we push them. Do you physically push them? Do you, like, what are you doing methodologically in order to nurture this curiosity? Like, for example, give us some examples of what you're doing, because obviously the output of, yes, these people, so what are you doing, and then how do you know if they're being curious?
Okay, the first thing, we ask the right question, because that's always a good thing to do, no? The right question, the why question, a comfortable question. And then we make them do things that they're uncomfortable doing, like working in group, going outside what they normally do. So we do actually push them and give them a lot of uncomfortable feedbacks that they are like the one that like helps them more to create something new. And how do we know that we are succeeding? I think I'm linking with what you were saying. For corporates, it's really hard. It's not that easy. I mean, we do assessment, stuff like that, but that's not the only point. With students, so with our masters, it's easier because we see the change. We can actually see the change on them when they begin the course and when they finish the course.
Wonderful. So Ohad over here, calling your company with a neuro in it makes it sound like it's going to be more scientific. So, so tell us what you're doing in order to measure these domains.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, Neurotech, just briefly, we're in the field of attention. We are market leaders in the field of attention. We started from the field of ADHD. We're now market leaders in Israel for the diagnosis of ADHD. And we have other solutions for measuring attention in other domains like HR, like education. And we've launched a new product just 2 days ago, a B2C product for parents to screen their children for ADHD. But we come from the perspective of that ADHD is not necessarily something that is negative. So sometimes you can take something like ADHD and take away some positive aspects of that and link that into other aspects of life like work, for example. So there was a study that we did 3 years ago with Bar Ilan, Professor Hoffman and Grossman, and it's in the field of inattentional blindness. So if you know the paradigm, you see two groups of basketball players. One is wearing black, the other one wearing white, and you need to count the passes of the group that is wearing white. And as you do it, the gorilla walks in the background and waves hello. And most people don't see the gorilla. It's called inattentional blindness, perfectly normal. But what happens when you give this test to someone who has ADHD? Well, they all count exactly the right number, which is the main task. They all see the gorilla, and most of them also see the curtain changing color and one of the players that's leaving the game. And that's a superpower, guys. That's a superpower. So what if we take this superpower and we apply it to a position like, for example, security? So now the guard is reading a book, but at the same time, he can see everything that goes around. He can hear everything that is going around. And that's a powerful thing to have for a security guy, or even in security in general. But would we, by gut feeling, connect this skill to that position? No, because we don't know what we don't know. And that's my criticism about the current way we do research. We are looking for things we think are relevant. But in real life, most of the things that we don't know, we really don't know. So this is where the big data comes in and machine learning. And in our data, we collect more than 300 million data rows at the moment, and we have a lot of correlations that are going on. Some of them are fascinating, like, for example, the connection between daydreaming, or what people call today mind-wandering, and creativity. So that child that is sitting in the back of the class and now he's daydreaming, okay, so he's not very interested in maybe literature, but he may be the most creative child in that class. So that's another perspective that we need to look into.
Terrific. By the way, if anybody in the audience wants to ask a question, just indicate as well. I have no a monopoly on the great questions. So if you do, just indicate that you have one, and we'll take your question as well. So at Amdocs, Hagit, we spoke informally yesterday about the gap between the ought to do and willing to devote the time in order to do. So this is very, very typical in corporate life. Everybody, wants, we just want them. Can you just kind of give them the teamwork injection or the communication skills pill? And because I don't really have time to actually do that, can they just have it? So can you talk a little bit about trying to change internal corporate culture to give more, like what does it take in a huge organization with 40,000 employees in order to get the attention of management? Because they don't need to be persuaded that they want it, but they need to invest in it and measure some kind of ROI.
Yeah, and I think that Yariv spoke in the morning about the accountability of employees to drive their own development. And that's a huge change as well, because at least in the past, that was the role of the managers to impose that. So we are trying to change that as well. And as Professor Moyal said, to do those changes in any institute, it's very, very difficult. So we are trying to come from different directions. First of all, I think that expose our employees and managers as much as we can to really what happened around, to the changes in the way that we are looking in the career, to the differences in the generation. I think that in Amdocs today, we almost have 5 generations. We are getting to starting to see the Z generation getting, not in Israel, but around the world. So to understand the complexity, and always there is this struggle between the here and now. The unit that Yariv is managing is really responsible for a lot of projects. And if someone needs now to learn microservices, they need it now, and they can't wait for a year or two. So we need to provide the here and now. But in addition, we understand that machine learning, AI, robotics are really coming in front of us, and we need the people to be ready for that. So always the tension between the here and now and the future, which is a very close future. And I think if we talk about business skills, this is the tension too, because, okay, I understand that I need to learn microservices, or I need my team to be, to develop their ability to work as a team because of DevOps, but do I really need multicultural skill? Do I really need communication skill? Not sure. Maybe in a few months, but now to make time for it is very, very challenging. And I don't think we are there yet, but I think the conversation is much more involving, and we are in the way.
So, Giulia, I'm very familiar with the business model over here and the business model over there. There you're really corporate overhead, and even though, that's what you are, you're in the expense budget, and over here you're going on a B2C level, because from a regulation standpoint, that's an easier place to start. And it's clear who's kind of paying for it. But at Talent Garden, which is such a beautiful name for a company where you are nurturing You can just feel that you're bringing in and you're watering and you're trying to grow all of this talent. But what is the business model? Like, who's paying you? Where's the money coming from? Is it public sector money? Is it corporate money? Do they send people to you like, these people need some watering and some nurturing, let's send them to the talent garden? Or is it beginning another way? Like, what's the business model?
Yep. The vision of Talent Garden is to create these spaces, so physical spaces where people can meet and create a business. So people create an ecosystem of innovation. So around Europe, we have 23 campuses, and the business model is based on three things. The first one is co-working. So it's a co-working space where people from digital innovation come to work. There are start-upper, freelancer, corporate, they send employees to work in our spaces. The second one is connection. So we create a lot of events to create connection among people. No, just see today. A lot of things are happening here, but a lot of things are happening outside this door. No, during the dinner, coffee break. So we try to leverage on this human way of making business. And the third thing is school. That's the unit that I run in Italy. So it's training for students and for corporate. So to answer to your question, the money are coming from co-working, so people that come and rent physically a desk in our space, and comes from students that come to our space to study, and they come from corporate. They approach us to help them in the digital transformation process.
So, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have four very interesting people over there. Please use this opportunity to ask them questions. Don't be shy.
That's right, yes.
Gentle, yes, sir. Do you see a trend or a shift?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. So I think this is, I don't think a new trend. I think it's been in Amdocs for many years that we based a lot of our learning development on internal forces. But I see more and more people that are not, we didn't find them as an expert. Actually, the new platforms, similar to YouTube, allow them to actually create their own content, usually video, and the crowd with them judge that. So we see a lot of people that we, as the corporate, the L&D corporate, we didn't notice them, and then we just enable this platform, and suddenly they become kind of YouTubers. We're trying to also promote this option and allow people to learn how to be YouTubers. And we want to encourage that because, as I mentioned before, learning from your groups, so this is why we encourage also groups and communities to learn together. We feel that this is one of the best way to really spread the knowledge.
And if I can add something, what we do with corporate normally is to, we don't make an assessment, we make an innovation network analysis. So we actually map inside the company who are the people that normally are like point of reference for others, and we leverage on, and we help the company leverage on them. So the investment that they made is really shaped into the target that they have.
So one of the, thank you, that's a nice question. So Ohad over here, if you have a look over here at the conference, and you know, not going to call it for anybody, I'm the same as well. We're spending a lot of time on our screens over here, pretending that we're listening to the conversation, but really checking email and or trying to link with us on LinkedIn. So there's an attention deficit disorder challenge in corporate life as well, right? Hundreds of emails, many distractions on Slack. And so each time you're getting, you get a new Slack message, and then you kind of pay attention to that. And now my team just gets me on WhatsApp because I'm more responsive than I am on email. So is there anything that you feel from your experience now in addressing ADHD in children that you think is transferable to corporate ADHD in the workplace?
Well, big question. A lot,
right.
Actually. A lot, actually.
First of all, you'll get 1.5 minutes.
First of all, we have a misconception about ADHD. There is a big difference between ADHD and attentional difficulties. The things that we experience in daily life, we answer a lot of mails, we don't sleep well, we argue with our spouse, etc. These are attentional difficulties. It's not ADHD. ADHD is something that is pathological, neurological disorder, something different. But we do use tactics in the daily life in order to gain more attention. So for example, sometimes texting or doing something on the phone or just scribbling or pressing a squeeze ball is actually a strategy for us to gain more attention. Now, teachers don't understand that. So the minute they see a child scribbling, they're like, stop that, don't do that. But that's a strategy. You take that away from the child, you're actually diminishing his way of gaining control on his attention. It's the same thing in meetings when you see an executive doing like this with a pen. The sound helps him concentrate. So the more forgiving organizations are to the needs of the employees with regards to the attention, the more they will get skilled and more attentive employees. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think it is.
Yeah, definitely.
In 1.5 seconds.
So that was good. So is there anybody over here who, if we have a consensus, I'm looking at the time over here, we've got about another 3 minutes. If there's anybody over here who on the startup side in Israel is trying to focus on the kinds of skills that we've been speaking about over here. Well, that's the blue ocean, right? I mean, every single person.
But can I offer a different question?
Yes, go ahead.
Please ask the question.
Well, you ask it, yeah.
No, you ask it. When was the last time one of you was in a school, was visiting a school, went through the corridors, teacher's room, classrooms? When is the last time you've actually been into a school? Please raise your hands if this happened last week, last month, last year, a decade. Please ask them.
Yeah.
I think the point here, I mean, I'm talking about Italy. The point in Italy is that people finish university, oh, I'm done. Now I start to work. Because that's how we always have been. So we are used to that. So we are not used to get back to school. So I think that the question that you ask, first one, it's really important. And second one, in Italy, it's really a cultural problem because like learning it isn't done after university. But that's not how people think. So it's change of mindset. Not
I'm going to be a rude Israeli interviewer. Visit schools. You know so much, all of you. I'm listening to you. Go into schools. Sit there in classrooms, corridors. Talk to parents, teachers, and students. You'll find amazing things there on top of what you know. Please wrap it up, Simmy.
So in wrapping up our session over here, I guess I had the first word and getting the last word as well. I don't know how many of you know what Head Start is. One of the most successful education programs in the States. Head Start was this theory that if you take kids, underprivileged kids, and you start giving them the skills, the math, the reading, and the science skills at very early grade, because they're not getting it at home. These were kids in the lowest quartile socioeconomically. Then you're giving them a head start in order to at least begin more or less on a par with the students who come from more advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. And a fascinating study done at the School of Education at Columbia University about 3 or 4 years ago showed that the biggest return on investment, and this is a corporate meeting, right? This is not a feel-good, kumbaya kind of teachers get together. The biggest return on investment in Head Start was in fact that the students learned skills like persistence, grit, tenacity, conscientiousness, agreeableness, everything in the Big Five. And that's in fact where the biggest return on investment came from. I want to urge over here, I want to thank the co-panelists. I think that we've got a huge challenge ahead of us between what people ought to be doing and want to do and the amount of time they prepare to invest in it. I think what we've seen over here is that if we can give the data that measures the progress being made, the likelihood of adoption is going to be greater, and in the end, the return on investment will be there. And in the startup community, I think that in Israel, we're missing opportunities as well, and I think that somebody should have the initiative in order to join, really. There are companies that are being sold now at huge multiples of earnings in this domain, and that is in the domain of social and emotional learning on measurement and development, and that is because of the fact that the efficacy is there, and that's where the investment will come from. So I want to thank all of you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.